long term versus short term, right? When people are investing, do you like to mix it up? Do you think it's better to, go for a long term versus a short term investment? Like, what are your thoughts about that? And I know you talked a little bit about like 10-year plans and different things, but what is your feeling about investing long term versus short term?
So I actually use that with a kind of like an experiment I'm on one of my other stock accounts through Webull. They actually gave me a paper account. So you just paper trade and they gave me $1 million. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna show everybody I'm gonna make $1 million. And 5 minutes into it, I lost 40 grand. And I was like, okay, we are not doing this right. Like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
So then I'm actually using that for two reasons: long term and short term. My long term is the S&P and Tesla because I want to see what happens if I actually hold the way I want to. And then I have other companies that are short term, like Starbucks, Coinbase. Those I plan to get rid of within a few years, but I want to see what happens if I let it go after a year. If it went up, cool, how much did I make? And if it went down, how much can I maintain to lose in relation to the long term? It's going to come down to your goal. Obviously, if you go long term, you win regardless, unless it's a really bad company. But to
Blockbuster.
beat, yeah, like that. And also, like any companies under bankruptcy, those you kind of want to stay away from because if
Good
they declare
coffee,
it, then that's it. Yeah, like all the shares are gone. So
bro.
long term is really the goal. If you just want to play it safe, the S&P 500 that tracks the 500 top companies in the US, that you can't lose to it. It'll fluctuate every year, but if you check its history pattern, it always goes up. And if you just throw like $100 or $200 a month, it'll go up. I actually did an experiment with that last year, and I ended up averaging out like 30% overall. And I was like, cool. So it does work. It's gonna come down to your strategy. If you are trying to get rich quick, you're gonna lose regardless. But if you actually want to build wealth, long term is the game. You got to go for at least 5 years if that's the route you go. Short term, you basically just gotta pray you get lucky and hope it just skyrockets,
So
or
give
just
me
pick the right company that does it.
So give me your top three long-term recommendations. Obviously, once again, we're not saying anybody to go out and do this, right? We're not advocating to go buy the SPF 500 or whatever it was. That sounds like a sunscreen. So I probably said that wrong.
S&P.
The S&P, yeah,
S&P,
SPF
yeah.
500, listen, you guys are in Florida. That sun's brutal out there.
It is, bro.
Yeah, boy. So we're not advocating for any of this. It's just to give people an idea of what to start to look at, right? Because I think that's the important thing to take away is whatever he's about to recommend, he's not saying you should go buy because, they're great long-term investments. These are things that you need to read about and learn about because it may be the right long-term investment for you, but it doesn't mean go do it. So who would you, like, if you're, for instance, if you're talking to me, right, and I'm curious, like, because, I got some discretionary cash because my credit cards are in check. I don't have a car payment currently. And, I'm doing some things on the back end with some other properties and stuff. So where would you tell me if I was like, hey, man, I'm looking to, invest, let's say $1,000 long-term investment. I want to split up between three stocks, three properties. What would you recommend for somebody like me?
Well, it wouldn't be that easy of a recommendation. We have to see where your market is. Like, do you want to deal with technology? Do you just want to deal with food and beverage, retail?
Well, that's what I'm
The
saying. I
way
guess
I do,
I'm looking for three, so I'd like to diversify, right? I'd like to maybe get a
So
technology, a few, like I would like one of each in order to kind of diversify my thing. I'm not looking to put, like I say, I'm looking to, about 300, I guess 300, 300, 300, or 350, 350, 350, right? And so like in those categories and stuff, where do you see, recommendations? Is it going with the big names? Like if you're gonna go technology, like for instance, go Apple, right? Like, they're continually always trending in the right direction and stuff like that. Like, how do you feel about stuff like that?
So if the way I would say is to hit all three, you want to hit an index fund like the S&P.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that like SPY, that's the one
ETFs.
I
Yep.
yeah, ETF as well, my fault. You just hit S&P 500, you just put 300 there, you just don't even look at it at 1,000. Then I'm a bull on Tesla. I don't care what anybody says. That's who I firmly believe is going to win the EV race into the next decade. So that's just on me. And then if you want to go with Apple, Apple's really good when it comes to dividend payments. They're over 2 million in market cap. I mean, if they just keep
2
growing
million or
and growing,
2 trillion?
2 trillion. Yeah.
Yeah.
2 trillion. And I could see them hit 3 trillion in like 7 years because they're trying new things and they are trying to do the Apple Car. And if that succeeds, that will actually help them get to the 3 trillion market. So if you had to pick three, it would be those three.
So let me ask you this then. Are you doing the Apple one and the Tesla one together? Because if Apple does a car, it could bring down the Tesla. It could start to compete with the Tesla, you think, or not so much?
Hell no.
No, it won't be. Yeah.
This is the reason why I chose those two.
Yeah.
Is so Tesla, obviously, they're known for making cars. They're working on their own battery. They do a lot more than just those two. Apple, if you think about it, how many people buy Apple phones? And how many people pay for Apple Music? And then anytime they have a new product like the AirTags and the MacBooks and their subscriptions, not just we, but a lot of people use it. So it's going to keep growing overall. It may not grow every single quarter, but think about it. When the new iPhone comes out, a lot of people are going to buy it. And the way they like to store their music through Apple Music, so people keep paying for that. We're switching to a streaming-based viewing with movies. Apple TV has that. So they have a really big customer base, and that's why I chose that.
Well, but I guess that's where my question comes in about the Apple Car, right? Because, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I got the impression the Apple Car is supposed to be a competitor to Tesla, is it not?
It is, but I don't see it as such because
here's what we go back to, right? Because this is, and then I'll let you go off a little bit about it. But when I think about Apple, like you said, it's about the brand, right? People are buying into that brand, that way of life, right? I mean, Apple Air, like even AirPlay is on Sony TVs, different things like that. Like they're integrated everywhere. Apple HomeKit, so you can integrate your security and all that. So you got Tesla, who has self-driving capabilities and stuff. Well, Apple already has its own mapping system, right?
Yeah. They partner with Neo for that.
Okay, I'm just saying, but they have their own mapping system. So one of the things they talk about for automated vehicles and stuff is Google Maps and stuff like that. Well, Apple already has their own system. They're going to be able to integrate into the car. Now, also, what's the device that's in a Tesla? Isn't it an iPad, pretty much?
It's a tablet, but it's not an iPad.
It's just a tablet.
Well, there you go. But Apple now puts their own tablet in their own car, right? You already have Apple CarPlay, which is going to be in that car then, right? And so you're going to literally walk into a car that's the same ecosystem as your house. I think that is going to be enticing to people to start to look at that as a viable option if the vehicle is up to snuff, mind you. This is all an assumption on that part. But if I got nothing but Apple in my life and I can either get the same equivalent of car between Apple and Tesla, why would I buy Tesla over Apple? When literally what I'm doing at my house is walking into my car with me.
Here's my 2 cents on that. And Apple, well, they're two different companies, right? Apple is mostly retail. They build a culture around the things we use.
They're not retail, right? So that's where you got to be careful.
But they do have a retail.
Yes,
they do have a retail.
But understand what they're engineering, right? They engineer devices and they sold them through a retail, because that's like saying Tesla is a car company, is like a car lot, right? That's what you're saying, because they have car lots, but they're not a car lot. Apple's not. But that's what I was going to tell you.
They do different. They're in the technology field, technology sector, but they're two different types of companies in a sense how they work, right? So Elon Musk and Tesla have SpaceX, the Tesla cars, and they have the batteries they're building, the solar panels. They have all this, right? That has nothing to do with what Apple does. The biggest difference between those two companies is where they're going and where their mission is, right? Obviously, Elon Musk. And when you invest in a company, you want to invest in their mission. If you believe in their mission, that's the biggest thing you got to look for. If you don't believe in a company's mission, do not put your money in it, because you're investing in something you don't believe in, right?
Exactly.
So obviously, Apple is Apple. Whatever Apple does, because of the cult following, it becomes good, right? But Tesla is thinking Tesla in its own, right? Remember, people used to think Tesla was just a car company, and Tesla is not a car company. When I think it was called it was on Kramer. When he made the announcement, he said the mistake that people make with Tesla is they think they're a car company, but they're actually a tech company. The minute he finished that sentence, right after that, Tesla stocks went from 200, and I watched it. I'm like, shit, I'm kicking myself because I didn't catch it on time. From 200 to like 1,000 by the end of that year, almost at 1,000 by the end of that year, just out of that statement.
And so you don't think Apple is going in that direction? They're making. So think about it. They're making their own processing chips, right? So they're no longer outsourcing it.
Yeah,
right?
they will.
What do you mean?
They will. They might go into a car, which it looks like they are because
I'm saying they're already they've already started the stages of a tech company. If you're making processors and all this other stuff, you're becoming a tech company, right? So to sit there and say like, yeah, they're not a car. Tesla's not a car company. They're a tech company. Apple's not a retail company. They're not a Best Buy. They're not a Walmart.
No, they're not.
What?
They're not. They're not like.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So they're a tech company.
Yeah, they yes, they are a tech company, but like there's two different missions between those two companies.
Yeah,
of course.
That's what I'm trying to say.
But I know, I get it. But you say things sometimes that are just so like asinine and simple. Yeah, but name me any company that has the same mission. Go ahead, give me one.
So maybe I can explain
Walmart
it
and Best Buy.
They don't have the same mission.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't.
I mean, the way I feel like Apple's car project won't be as big as Tesla's is because the amount of resources Tesla's putting into this project. Their biggest thing is going to be the full self-driving system. What Tesla wants to do with it is something called a robo-taxi. So it's basically Uber without cars. That's what it is, and that's why I believe. Yeah, exactly.
I say, how do you Uber without a car? Like, how the hell am I getting there?
I meant to say Uber without.
I was like, wait a minute, how does that happen?
That's why I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page.
They're teleporting, bro.
That's a little awkward.
Beat me up, Scotty.
Let me retract. So that system is trying to be Uber without drivers, and it's going to work under the 5G network across the U.S. And basically, you can actually have your Tesla pick up people, drive them to the location, and let it work while you're either working or doing other stuff. Yes,
Sleeping
Apple can work under a system, they can integrate it and all that. It's going to come down to who has full self-driving. If Apple doesn't do that, then cool, they have a nice tech piece of a car, but you don't have an automotive or an autonomous vehicle. And those are the two different things that people don't get when they say, oh, Apple's car is going to work. You're not seeing the bigger picture. Tesla has a very big project, and that's why I'm seeing them as the winner of this whole thing.
So this is why I disagree, though, right?
Okay.
So Apple is a huge phone company, correct? Would you say? Yes. Like I know they're not number one worldwide. I don't think they're like
no.
Yeah.
The Android is.
The Android. Well, Android doesn't count. It's like, Samsung, Motorola, like, whatever. But we're talking about that's an operating system, not a phone, right?
Yeah.
So, but they're not the
biggest.
That
operating system is bigger than iOS.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to say, though, is this. When it comes to the phone, and you're familiar with this, what innovation has Apple brought to the phone since they came out with the iPhone?
In terms of like just anything in general?
Anything, right? Because if you think about it, right? Samsung went bigger before them. Did they not?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Apple waited to go bigger. Then Samsung went back to a couple smaller devices. Apple followed back down with some so a lot of the things that have been out in that industry were put out by people before Apple. So waterproofing their device. Samsung had waterproofing devices long before Apple did it, right? Mm-hmm. So their phones weren't water resistant or waterproof where you could, that was part of the commercial. I remember Lil Wayne dropping the phone in the fish tank and stuff like that because because Apple couldn't do it. But Apple may not be the first to do it, but Apple waits until they're the damn best at it. I get what you're saying about the car thing, right? So they're going to beat them to that race. But when we're talking about long term, 20 years from now, Apple will be just side by side with them. If not, I'm not going to say they're going to be the leader, but what I'm saying is it's just going to be the same because they're not going to be the first. They're going to let them beat them to the race, and then they're going to re-engineer what they're doing to try to make it better or just as good for the Apple person. That I can guarantee. That's the faith I have in that company. That I'm not talking about 10 years from now. I'm talking about 25 years from now. Apple's vehicle will be just as autonomous as Tesla. Now, sure, Tesla will shoot up quicker, but in the long run, who's more sustainable, right? Because the one thing I don't agree with the mission is the money they're spending with this company to do these things in space that I just don't know how viable it's going to be. Where is your profit going to come from?
Well, yeah, the space mission, that's from SpaceX, so it won't be off of Tesla.
No,
so
but
you have to see it as two different things.
Messiah kind of brought that in as part of that company, right? And
that
stuff.
Yeah.
See, he's saying it is, but Nate's saying it's not. It's a separate entity.
Because Elon Musk is the CEO of all the companies, but it's different subsectors. So Tesla is going to be working on, obviously, the car and the batteries. SpaceX is all about just going to space.
And that's the difference with Apple. With Apple, you're buying into everything, right? So you're buying into, hey, man, a phone launch came out, right? So that's going to help them. Oh, a new computer came out, a new tablet came out, a new car came out. All these things that are coming out are helping the Apple business, where Tesla, what are they, you start to get to a point where it starts to slow down a little bit. Like they've been working on this on just their electric car for how long now?
Well, they've been working on their electric car for years, but then what they did was,
I think it's been a lot. I mean, this isn't like a years thing. How long has Tesla been out? And then to add probably 10 years in the making of the battery for, like, you know what I'm saying?
That's the biggest. I think that's their biggest right now. Their biggest focus is on the battery.
Yeah, it's on the battery and their charging station. So basically they took the Model S, made as much as they could on that one, made different models from the Model 3, the Model X and all that. So now they realize, okay, it's the battery that's going to be what propels forward, because they can supply their own batteries. They don't have to outsource it. They don't have to buy from other people.
Yep.
And now with their charging station, it used to be just Tesla cars, but now they're allowing other EVs to be charging with it. So they've been growing beyond it, just besides the car. It's the little things that are making it. So you have a valid point with Apple.
Yeah.
It's just, again, two different things. And that's just how I see it. And there's nothing wrong with the Apple project. You know, I get it. They can do it. They have the resources. Just from me looking at it, I don't see it.
Yeah. I tell you what, though, I think that's where Tesla needs to really start to think about investing in the future is charging stations. Because if you make charging stations that, like, for instance, an Apple car, a Ford car, a Chevy car, that all these electric cars can charge at, think about it. You could take a cut off of all of those charges, right? Because they're your stations. You can literally become an oil company for electric.
Well, I think that's what they focus.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah,
Tesla is focusing on their superchargers, because it's called the Supercharger Network. They uploaded, I forgot how many it was in China last year, because of the demand for that vehicle over there was, and then of course all the other competition from NIO and Li Auto. So they've been going really heavy on this charging station network that they have, if I'm not mistaken, 2 or 3 factories just on charging stations. Yeah, that's all they have.
I'm telling you, that's where I think that's where their real business is going to be if they're talking about long-term sustainability. Because once again, if Apple and these other companies start to compete, which I'm a believer they could, I'm not saying they will, but I think they could absolutely in a certain amount of time be just as relevant as Tesla, because there's never anybody there's no monopoly in that stuff, right? I'm sorry, there just isn't. I get you're going to be the first one to do it, but Ford was the first one to get a motor vehicle, and last time I checked, not everybody's running out to go buy a Ford now, 100 years later. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, Tesla may be first. It doesn't mean they're going to be the best. And so I believe there's going to be companies out there, Google and Apple and Amazon and these types of companies will get out there and they will do it, right? And they will do it better.
So what Nate mentioned earlier about the companies that are doing, the cars that are like a taxi, the Uber taxis and all that. That shit's already testing out there in California. A lot of that shit's already been testing where the self-driving cars. I think the reason why I invested in NIO is because I was reading this article, which is another EV company, but in China, based in China. The reason why I invested and I caught them early, which is good, blessings. And I caught them early was because the article I was reading is they partner out with Apple to do the maps. And Apple was actually running their the way the maps go in their operating system. And they're actually just autonomous cars. They're like taxis.
For who?
Yeah, I'm
Apple?
reading about that too.
No, NIO.
Which is the company Apple's with.
Yes.
So once again, they're already on. That's my point. They're already on. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're working and they're just partnering. I think what they're doing is testing out their map system. I think that's what they're doing.
Here's the problem, though, right? I don't believe autonomous vehicles are a viable option unless it's and we're starting to run low on time. So, I'll just try to get these last points in, but I don't see autonomous vehicles being a viable option unless every vehicle on the road is autonomous. You cannot put human drivers on the road with autonomous vehicles and expect there not to be an issue. What happens to that first accident and that first death for the person who's in the autonomous vehicle?
That's already happened.
And what was the lawsuit?
Well, we don't know that part. We don't know. But
that's my point.
The accidents already happened. The self-driving cars accidents already happened. I remember when Tesla first came out, one of the accidents that got put on the article was Tesla could not differentiate a truck that's white, like a white paint trailer, and in the road. So it ran. The guy was self-driving. I guess I don't know what happened, but the Tesla car went right into the trailer, and the guy died.
Yeah,
because it couldn't identify it. So, but I think that's where, again, since we're talking about investments, there's companies that created the LiDAR or LIDAR company
LiDAR.
that reads LiDAR, that reads, that maps out camera system that maps out and it reads out people what's out there. So that's another thing you can look into, stuff like that. Companies that create stuff like that and technology of that. Circuit boards and all that. But either way, Tesla and Apple, they're both in the same sector. You can invest on any of one of those companies. The difference is Apple's going to cost you $170. Tesla's going to cost you $600, $700 a share.